everyone. I was just pinning the link to my guest's website. Thank you all so much for tuning in. So it's Monday, and thank you for tuning in to the second episode of MonDeities, an Insta live series with me, Ada Zanditon, talking to other creative deities. Whew! What a week it's been. It has been a really intense time, and I know that many of us have been protesting, following the news, donating, doing what we can to amplify Black Lives Matter and demanding justice for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and many other people who've been killed simply because of the colour of their skin. And really, it's been a time where we're all demanding the change required to end racism, and and to really, talk about white privilege, because I think it's very easy to not talk about it, but it's something that we need to talk about even when it makes us feel uncomfortable. And we really need to listen to our Black friends, and I think that that's what many of us have been doing this past week. If you're tuning in and you are able to, please consider donating to the George Floyd Memorial Fund, also the Minnesota Freedom Fund, the Black Visions Collective. I have put a story on both of the accounts, Ada Zanditon Couture and Fashion Unfucked, where there's links to various funds that you can donate to. And please definitely sign the petition at change.org, the George Floyd petition at change.org. And also visit, the Insta accounts of Black Lives Matter, the hashtags of Black Lives Matter. Visit accounts like Monroe Bergdorf, also at Das Penman, which is das.penman. They have really great slides and resources that you can share with people about Black Lives Matter. And I just really hope that everyone is taking the time to really actively be anti-racist and not just silent, because I feel like we really need to it's really the time to be more than just not racist. We have to be actively anti-racist. And that's what I wanted to say about that. So thanks so much for tuning in. I will start waving at some of you. It's lovely to see you all here. So, in case you're tuning in for the first time, I'm Ada Zanditon. I create avant-garde spiritual kink, and my tagline is to harness the power of your inner warrior deity, recognizing the universe in yourself, whether that is a goddess, a god, or a non-binary spirit, for every type of deity, for every person that there is. And I personally create with a queer, sex, body positive, femme perspective on fetish and BDSM. Also, as it is the 1st of June, I would like to wish everyone a very happy Pride Month as well. And to celebrate, I am wearing my Pride times Stonewall harness. Which a donation from each of these goes to Stonewall Housing, which helps homeless LGBTQ youth as well. Yes, and let's just use this month to do as much as we all can for Black Lives Matter, for LGBTQ causes and visibility. Thank you very much. Happy Pride Month to you all beautiful deities as well. A quick warning, there could be some swearing in this episode, and my second guest is the artist and embroiderer Lucy J Newman, founder of LJN Studio, and we'll be talking about her work and the incredible embroidered nipples. Here is Lucy. Hopefully she'll be joining us. Oh, excellent. Very soon. Any second now. As any second now. It's like a magic trick. There
Hello.
Hi.
Hello,
gorgeous. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah. Thanks for that little introduction.
Oh
I'm
my gosh.
horrifically nervous. I've had the worst butterflies all day because I would never do this unless it was for you, obviously.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's totally okay. I feel horribly nervous even the whole time I'm actually on Instagram Live. And I think that's really natural, because it's not normal, to, as introverted creative types, to speak to an audience, especially when you sort of can't see people. It's quite a weird medium, but I do love that it brings people joy and inspiration, and it's so lovely to see you too, Jack and Pele, and everyone else. And up below, I'm just gonna wave at some more people who have joined us. Um, Lucy, do you want to just sort of give actually, let me just say, embroidery, it's a very traditional technique, it's a very traditional art form, but you are not a traditional human being. She's not a traditional deity, whatever that means. And, you're like a fabulous goth witch. So what I'd really like to know is, how did a fabulous goth witch like yourself get into embroidery?
It's funny because I knew you were going to ask me that, and I actually don't really know how it happened. I know I've always done some kind of textiles. My mum has always been a maker, knitter, or sewing. She used to make us clothes, and it was always around, and we were always making things. I was always drawing and painting, and I had a bit of a sort of strange upbringing, kind of into sort of education. I was home educated, and then just did art qualifications up until I went to university. So I don't actually, I mean, when it comes to doing my taxes, it's like the worst thing ever, because I just have an NCFE in ceramics and no real life skills, which is like, oh, thanks.
Yay!
So yeah, like it's always just been part of everything I've always made, and really since 3 years ago, I just started embroidering, and I don't really know why it happened. I can't really remember, and I just loved it. And yeah, it's now 99% of my life I spend embroidering like a little old lady, and
Fabulous.
I love every minute of it. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Is there something you find, because obviously to embroider, it takes hours and hours of time and skill. And I'm just wondering, what do you feel it does for your mind, or does it do anything for your mind? How does, because I know that when I'm happiest is when I'm like busy riveting a harness together, and there's just like this sort of different state of being.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
just wondered if that's the same for you.
definitely. It's definitely meditation, and I've become so much more of a calm person all around. And I mean, I think like there's that quote, isn't it? Like, I stab things like 1,000 times a day or something. So like, I'm like really chilled or whatever. But it
I
is
did
like, it's,
not think of it like that. That's very
yeah.
pretty and
And
fantastic.
the way I embroider is very much like painting. I don't, like you said, skilled. I mean, you have to know what you're doing to a certain extent, but really the stitches that I'm doing, like there are embroiderers that do the traditional, much more difficult traditional stitches, which it does take skill and is very difficult. But I'm just painting. I'm doing this not like repetitive movement over and over and over again, and I'm fixated on something, so I can go for hours and hours and hours and not eat, not go to the bathroom or anything, just be embroidering in it. And that's my happiest. Like, I make my little nest, and that's it. I put music on or listen to podcasts or whatever, and I'm just, yeah, that's
In
my,
your zone.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
it's definitely just made me much calmer in general, because I spend so much time just in that
Oh,
flow state, I suppose.
yes, flow state.
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
embroidery flow state.
I feel like everyone's recognizing and talking a lot more about flow state now.
It's interesting for me this period, because obviously, like, I live quarantine life pretty much. There has been difficult, obviously, like, because I haven't been able to see friends and things, But when people start talking about, you know, how to work from home and things, and I've been doing it for such a long time, even before I was making embroidery, I worked with an artist, so I was on my own a lot, working, making sculptures in the studio, which was very similar. I was doing the same sort of thing over and over again and making these giant sculptures. And it's the same. I feel very comfortable with myself, because I've been doing it for so long. I think it's quite interesting to see people like really not being okay with being like in the quiet space and having to like do jobs and bake cake.
It's really hard for extroverts. It's been a really, really hard year. If you're an extrovert, this year has been horrible. And our like sincere love and sympathy to all of the extroverts out there and all of the performers, because, you know,
and I miss them, because that's what I watch. I want to watch them too.
I miss them very much. So not every embroiderer does naked medieval ladies riding
giant penis dragons.
So I just wondered, like, because you are quite like, I don't know, I don't want to say like punk rock, because that's just so like narrow and just shows like my severe lack of musical taste to like narrow it down to that. But like, if you could like, so what, like, how did you, like, what in your sensibility, like, did you bring from who you are as a person to the sensibility of embroidery to like create medieval penis dragon ladies riding them? Love it so much, by the way, but yeah, I want to know.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I've always seen the beauty in things that I think people have always pulled away from. Like, I think that's the goth thing, you know, like you like sort of bats and spooky alleyways and things, and that's always, I don't know, it's always excited me. And I quite like the idea of making something that takes me hours, you know, like something this big will take me a whole day, and it takes, you know, I put a lot into it, and it being something, you know, I don't know, like this little sketch from a medieval book or something silly that people wouldn't really pay any attention to. I like just sort of like twisting the narrative just slightly. But yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know if I'm that punk rock. I think I'm really boring.
I do not, well, I don't know. I don't think anything could be further from the truth. But I do kind of like the way that the least boring people always think that they're boring. I feel like it's sort of like the people I know who are the most subversive and like cool goth punk rock type people, they have this sort of fantasy. I think you all have this fantasy that you're boring, because it's like this fantasy that you want to have, because I feel like do you think that could be possible?
Yeah, in my head I'm a wallflower. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I very much think that. And in terms of like our collaboration that we did, where you embroidered stunningly beautiful, realistic nipples, and you did both white and black nipples, and we also talked about, you know, other skin color nipples, which we haven't done yet, but it would be great to do at some point. But yeah, I was just wondering, like, what was like, because you put so much thought into the nipples, and
I did.
You did, and like my favorite bit about the nipples was Lucy made these stunning embroidered nipples that I then put onto these cork bras, and I couldn't I put the first bra together and I sent you a picture, and I had got the nipples the wrong way up, because I, in my complete lack of subtlety, had totally failed to notice that you had put like shading and so much detail into the nipples, and so I had to take them off and put them the correct way round.
Yeah, you don't want your nipples upside down,
like,
do you?
You don't want your nipples upside down at all. But is it like conscious, the depth of thought that goes into each artwork, or yeah?
Yeah, I'm very, I like that attention to detail, especially if I'm trying to make something look real and realistic. I'm a bit of a, I'll bully myself if it's not right, and I throw things away, or I put stuff in a drawer and it never gets back out again. But the nipples, especially with our collaboration, it was really important for me that they looked like real nipples, as much as, I mean, like a painted nipple, because it was a reaction to censorship. And I was actually, the nipples that I was inspired by were transfers for people that had had mastectomies.
Oh, wow.
So, and they were really, really beautiful, and people make them for people. Obviously, people would get tattoos as well, but you can just have these little pasties like stick along those lines, and so that was the idea behind them. But I want to make more for sure, because nipples come in all shapes and sizes, and they're all sorts of wonderful. And I think it would be really fun to do lots more of those.
Yeah, and the other thing about nipples is why are female nipples still a fucking problem?
It's so mad. It's so mental.
It's just amazing because honestly, I can't even, like, my brain clearly doesn't, it just is, doesn't understand like why it's such a problem.
How you could be offended by a nipple. I need someone to explain it to me.
Yeah.
It's just the definition of madness. Like
Yeah.
like, I mean, apart from people that have had mastectomies,
Yeah.
most people have nipples. So I mean, it's a really, I don't know. I think there's some people just have a zzz when it comes to nudity, but how it can actually upset you, I don't know.
I don't know. But yeah, so I love that we, so far, so good. All of the posts that feature our beautiful embroidered nipples have stayed up. So hooray, that's one in the face for the algorithm and the censorship.
And I recently embroidered 3 vulvas,
Yes.
which were they were actually taken from a drawing, a Japanese illustration from 1850 of how to examine yourself.
Okay.
So
from which? From where?
I actually couldn't find exactly where. There was 2 different books that they could have been from, but they were in. So the illustrations were the handheld mirrors, and they were in the handheld mirrors.
Oh, wow.
So I made them into their badges for a friend of mine. And yeah, that was really fun to do. I was actually staying at my mum's house, and she was...
Your mum was like, Lucy, darling, what are you doing? I'm just embroidering some vulvas.
Yeah.
Very that.
I was like, they're lovely fannies, mum. I get... My mum is amazing, and is always like...
lovely fannies.
Yeah, my mum was my number 1 fan, obviously, and she's so supportive and amazing. And she does a look when she just doesn't really approve, but she did say, "I think they're beautifully done." When I was embroidering the nipples, I was also at my mum's house, and
I love that you embroider all of your most sexual nude stuff at your mum's house. That's gorgeous.
And her crochet club came over, and we're like, "Oh, what are you making?" I was like, "Well, some very realistic nipples."
Love that.
You get a lot of this.
Very nice, dear. Very nice, realistic nipples.
Yeah. Penis dragons, all of that, they go through the mum filter before they put on Instagram, and just to check that she approves. And I mean, even
the mum seal of approval.
Yeah, even me modeling my own bras and things that I've been making, just like trying to the disapproval of mother is like quite like, oof. Like, oh God, she's getting her tits out on Instagram now.
I mean, it's like we've got to hustle, and we've got to do what we've got to do as artists.
I know. Right.
Sometimes you have to get your tits out on Instagram. That's just how
even to
it
sell
goes.
some embroidery. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Do you have any pieces of your embroidery to hand that you can
Yeah,
show us?
I've got some I've got some bits and pieces because I've been making, this is sort of the last things I've been making, which I don't know where to hold it up with my camera.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
this is Kate Moss's mouth, and these are going to be, I'm putting them on masks because obviously with this mask thing, I don't know. I know in different countries, I think people are wearing them. London, no one seems to be wearing them.
I'm wearing one that I made out of a tea towel.
Oh, well, I need to make you one of these then, don't I? Yeah, so, and I think that I've been wearing this around, because I went back to my mum's house to just, you know, take care of her when the quarantine sort of happened and everything.
Yeah.
She lives in a small seaside town. So, you know, you can imagine what the looks that I get anyway. And then I made this for me, and it just made everybody smile.
Yeah.
So much.
And I think anything that we can do as artists and creative people that can make people smile in these really hard times is wonderful.
That's my main thing with everything I do. I'm so lucky I get commissioned for most of my work, and I work really closely with people who are commissioning me because it's not cheap embroidery, because it does take a long time, and I want people to treasure it and love it forever. And you know, I don't believe in throwaway things. I don't believe that things should be worn once and not cared for. You know, when you've got something that's been handmade and you can tell that it's been handmade, you treasure it. And I've been really, I've lost my train of thought. Yeah,
that's okay. No, it's a great train of thought. Like, I was totally with you. Yeah, absolutely. So most of your work is commissioned. What's the like biggest, most complex commission you've done in embroidery, or what's one of them that you could talk about?
Unfortunately, I can't show you because it's for someone's wedding and they haven't got married yet.
Okay.
But I've made
no spoilers. That would be a terrible spoiler.
I've made a nudie suit basically. So there was, if you remember, especially in the 70s, like Willie Nelson and Dolly Parton and all those like amazing country stars used to wear the nudie suit, which was I can't remember the guy's like first name, whatever, but he used to embroider. There were sort of short jackets and just covered in embroidery and rhinestones, and they're just the most fabulous things possible. They've, I think, like Diplo and some people like that have been wearing them recently, but they're not hand embroidered. So obviously you can imagine how
Diplo,
long.
not hand embroidered. Come on, Diplo, you're laying this side down.
I know, right? Exactly. It's like, so I've made a nudie suit for someone that's taken me a while.
Would you mind to tell us how long it took? Like, if you can bear it, or you can just tell us an abbreviated version.
I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know where to start. And yeah, I wouldn't.
If it makes you feel better, there's a dress that you can see on my Insta account, which is sort of a basket woven dress that took me 10 years. So if it may...
Oh my God, I've definitely got some things around.
I have spent 10 years on a piece before. The reason it took 10 years, not because it took 10 continuous years. Obviously, I would, you know, not... still be this cute if it had taken a whole 10 years, but it was something that I started, and it was horribly complicated. And so what I would do is I would just do like 2 weeks a year. But then in year 10, when I realized, oh my goodness, this has been in your studio for 10 years, I was like, this needs to be done. This cannot not be done anymore. I have to fix this.
Yeah, I start to kind of hate things if I'm working on it for too long. I'm like, I've been doing a lot of these bras and obviously doing the same thing twice, like, because I get a bit bored and yeah, doing that. I will do the first piece really quickly, and then the second piece I'm like, oh, I'll just go and have a look out here, and like I procrastinate, and then I start watching the Real Housewives of wherever, and then it's gone completely down the drain. But I've done. I feel like things used to take me longer. Now I've found ways of working, and I found and not necessarily things that because I went and learned traditional techniques at the Royal School of Needlework, and obviously they're very, very like, this is how you do it. So I kind of came out of that being really precise and really perfect with everything. But I realized,
when did you do that?
3 years ago. Yeah. So I realized that it doesn't need to be like the perfect size stitch and everything. It just needs to work visually and work.
It needs to express the artwork. And do you sketch the artwork before you actually start the stitching?
So that obviously that can take a lot of time as well. I've just got an iPad Pro, which is like my baby, and I love everything, because before I was doing a lot of tracing and with my Lightbox, and which I do love because I love drawing. But yeah, I draw everything, even if I'm using like these medieval guys.
This
is a bunny rabbit about there's a thing in medieval literature of murderous bunnies, which is a little bit of my obsession at the moment, and that nobody knows why. There's no reason for it, other than
murderous bunnies, naughty bunnies. Yeah.
Well, I think it's like the most sweet thing to turn into being a murderess. But there's also like lots of men.
Medieval embroidery is subversive, like you?
Oh, well, my favourite one, which I also haven't decided what I want to do with it, which is from a lady picking penises from the penis tree, and she's got them in her little penis basket. And the story from this.
Can you move the penis basket to the same side you had the lady? Because I think maybe people won't be able to see the penis tree. Penis basket, penis tree. Yeah, keep switching them. Give them equal amounts of time on both sides.
You can see them on my Instagram if you look.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to do with them yet, of what the best home for
maybe some men's underwear.
Yeah, there's a few more also that I want to draw, but even so these are funny because the book was written by a couple, and was like, oh well, I'll just finish this book, and just did loads of illustrations of lots of penis trees, cutting off penises. Yeah, I'll show you, and there's more embroideries to come, but it was all the only bit of information I could find is that the wife finished the book, and they believe the illustrations were hers.
So this is the sort of medieval illuminated script type book, or just
Yeah, exactly. And the book had nothing to do with, it's a really mundane, I think it's marriage law possibly, which is also hilarious if it's marriage law, because I think that maybe he died and she found out that he was cheating on her, and she was like,
maybe, or maybe she just never liked him.
Yeah, or I don't know,
like,
maybe she
was
sexually frustrated and wanted a penis tree in her garden or something. I don't know. But yeah, there's more of that to come. But yeah, even these, which obviously are taken from Illuminations, I have to redraw everything. Things don't, depending on the size, you can't have crazy small bits of detail. So I draw everything, which can be quite a long process as well when I'm designing things for people, especially if it's bespoke.
Have you always loved to draw? Is that something you've always?
Yeah. I get a bit tetchy if I've not sort of made something or been creative, or I can't really do the sort of day of doing nothing. It makes me get a bit. I lose my flow state.
You lose your flow state. But is there anything but apart from doing the artwork and doing the embroidery and the drawing and the creative process, what do you need as an artist what else do you need as an artist to for yourself? Like, do you know, like, because but that was so eloquent, Ada. Thank you so much. I understood your question perfectly. You know, like, what helps you stay in that flow state? Like, what keeps you there? Or do you feel like you literally need, you know, because for some people it's meditation and exercise, for some people it's red wine. Like, what are the things in life that, like, the other things in life that you love that give you your drive to follow your passion?
Yeah, music and nature, really.
Music and nature.
Music, nature, travel, friends, you know,
all of the things that we can do right now.
Yeah, those things. I mean, I'm so lucky to be able to go. My mum lives in Sussex, and it's so beautiful. And I bought. She had a knee operation last year, so I bought a bike last year. So I've been cycling around with my little basket that I've cable tied to a mountain bike. It's like a boy's mountain bike, and just go and sit on the beach and put my feet in the sea or whatever it is, and things like that. I do. Especially because I spend so much time in my little nest, and I do need. Sometimes I'll not leave the house for a while, so I'll have to go and do that. That is definitely my little bit of rest.
I like how extreme that is. It's like either nest, embroidery, or like the great outdoors, and it's not the things in between.
Yeah, no, I don't want to go for a run. I think you're mental.
Because I do feel like as soon as people start talking about deities and, you know, creativeness and spiritual stuff, or just expressing yourself in the universe, there is this assumption that we're all talking about wellness. And, you know, and there is a sort of something a little bit like culty about some of the language around wellness that can be a bit overwhelming. And also a bit sort of like virtue signally.
It doesn't always sound that helpful to me, like that language. I'm like, really, do I have to do that? Like, do I have to worry about my yoni and, like, you know
how many hours this embroidery will take? I haven't got time for that.
Yeah, the best thing is I haven't done it for a long time, obviously, but I get to do workshops every now and then, teach people embroidery, and it's amazing how at first people are, you know, they don't really know what to do with their fingers and what's going on, and then you see it click into this little flow, and they'll be sitting there so happy doing it for, you know, even I did something at like a press event, so it was like people popping in and doing it, and people were like, oh, I really need to go, I've got to pick my kid up in a minute, and they just sit, oh, I'll just do a little bit more, and just do a little bit more, and that is that I think it does do something really calming to your brain to just let you just get into
the flow state.
Yeah, and you can't, everything is like, you can undo it, like you can't go wrong, you can't, you know, I mean, you can cut a hole in your fabric, but you know, it's pretty much like, if you don't like something, then you just unpick it, or you cut it, or you know, or you can embroider over it, or sometimes the mistakes are better than what you planned in the first place anyway.
That's really nice. I don't work in such a forgiving medium, like with PVC, for example. If you cut it in the wrong place, you cannot glue it back together. Or if you make the hole in the wrong place, you can't like fill the hole in. So I find, whenever I'm doing something that involves actual fabric and stitching, it's so delightful, because you're like, oh, this went wrong, I can unpick it. Whereas sometimes I feel like another sort of layer to working with the PVC materials is like, or if you just scratch it when you're sanding an edge, you can't unscratch it. Like, there's such an amount of like perfectionism required.
The only time I freak out is if I've got to use an iron on anything. If I've got to make something and I've got them here. I did pick some things to show you.
Oh yeah, we'd love.
I made these flags.
More things.
I made these flags. It's a bit difficult to see. That way around. They're like boat flags.
It's a crown and a lobster.
It's a crown and a lobster. And
what does the crown and the lobster mean?
So these are actually So a friend of mine who I made them for her lover, but she has been terrible about actually paying me, so I still have them. And they represent their love for each other. So that is the rose that's named after her, and then the butterfly is named after his boat. And then yeah, she's a Scorpio, and she wanted this like lobstery thing, and yeah, scorpion, lobster.
The lobster queen.
Queen, yeah, exactly.
I love that.
But yeah, these were, because a lot of the stuff I do now, as you can see, I embroider on this organza that I cut out and make things into patches, which just means that I don't have to, if I do go wrong, then I can, you know, I don't need to worry too much. But obviously I was embroidering directly onto this fabric and then having to iron it. Yeah. And having a full meltdown, because if I obviously burnt a hole through this, because it had to be nylon to survive on the boat.
Nylon and heat are always terrifying combination
like,
for any
horrible.
creative people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but mostly what I do is like, it's pretty, I remember when I first started my embroidery studio, I was doing collaborations with a lot of tattoo artists, and the first collaboration was with the most incredible tattoo artist called Alex Binney, and he's also an amazing printmaker, amazing artist, and he allowed me to make some of his works in embroidery. And the idea was that I was making embroidery kits so people could replicate them. And I came to him after, you know, like a month of like working so hard on this piece. I should find it. I think I have it here. I was like going crazy over trying to get all the like details, and this is one of them. There's like a self-portrait, and if you can see, I don't know if you can see, but they're all like tiny stitches. Organs. Yeah,
they look like tree branches,
and then this piece, which again is like tiny stitches.
Oh wow! What is that?
So this is a mask, like a traditional mask of one of his designs, and they're tiny stitches, and there's lots of different stitches in here. Like, it's very different to the kind of thing I do now, but it kind of drove me mental because I wanted it to be perfect, and I was so excited to show him. And I went along to his shop to show him, and he's quite blunt, and you know, he's been around for a while, and he said to me, well, I don't know why you've just done it exactly how, you know, it was on the tin. You know, you've not shown any of your expression or all this stuff. And I thought, yeah, that's true. I've just,
and you're like, do you know how tiny these stitches are?
Yeah. I was like, I've not had any fun making these. I've been so stressed out about presenting them to him and making them making them perfect. And really, since then, I was like, oh yeah, like nothing has to be. I'm not a photorealistic embroiderer, and I don't want to be. And everything that I want, like, I want things to have my stamp on it, and it's my creativity, and it's how I want it to look. And obviously when I'm working with clients, we work completely together as a team on it. But
it's a very interesting balance, isn't it, being someone who creates custom things? Because of course everyone is coming to you for your particular aesthetic, but at the same time they have a vision of what they want, and it's a very interesting dynamic. Like, how do you, what do you find so far in your experience has been the best way of approaching it? Or how do you, you say you work very closely, but like, you know, for anyone else who's a creative watching this who wants to do custom things, like, it would be great to talk about it more.
I think the best thing to do is give people options and explain why things are the way they are, why you need to do things certain ways, and especially with embroidery, about the level of detail and size, and keeping it within someone's budget. I mean, I'm sure you have too. I've been asked to do insane things for like £20, where, you know, it's just impossible. I'd love it. I'd love to be able to make things for super cheap. And, you know, people come to me with these insane ideas that will take me a year to make. Yeah. And so just making people understand. I usually give people sort of 3 options, like 3 price bracket options with a big project. And I make a detailed drawing and try and stick to that as much as possible. And then if anything changes within the creative process, they're involved with that as well to make those choices. And then I feel like we've definitely made something together. And when they get the final piece, it's as much theirs as it is something that I've made for them. I love it. And I love the people. Every time I send something to someone and I get that reaction of like, I love it so much. I do a lot of dog and cat portraits, you know, it's been my sort of
I was just wanting to ask you about the dogs and the cats as well.
Yeah, and that is like, people often buy them for people for gifts, and you know, that is definitely like a winner. Like if anyone wants to buy their partner, like, you know, the pet portrait, that's like definitely a winner.
Yeah. It's a winning idea, guys. I've pinned Lucy's website in the comments. So if you think a pet portrait, a handmade pet portrait would be a gorgeous gift, please go visit Lucy and talk to Lucy about that.
Yeah, or even your pet on, you know, on a giant penis dragon. You know,
your pet riding a giant penis dragon. Yes, with a naughty bunny rabbit chasing after it. I'm so into it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anything's possible. Everything's possible. I don't know if you can see it behind me. I've just done a portrait.
No, can you bring it closer to us? Sorry, every time I want to see your thing closer, I give everyone a terrible view of inside my nostrils. So I do apologize to everyone about that.
And I've got my legs out, so it's a bit odd.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
I don't know. Right. Can you see that?
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Like a selfie portrait.
It actually, I know you said you're not a photorealistic embroiderer, but the detail in that is painterly and photo-y. It's like, yeah. I love that you managed to capture the direction of light in embroidery. And something I don't have to do in my work at all. And I don't know how you do it. How do you do that?
Really, it's all about the drawing. Everything with embroidery is about your foundations, you know, of there's obviously techniques in the way that you actually go about starting embroidery, but I've learned how to draw for embroidery. So it's very similar to how people tattoo portraits. If you ever watch someone draw from a photograph and they draw the contours, so it's all about your contours. So you don't necessarily I'm not drawing a nose and eyes and a mouth. I'm just drawing those, if you can see them actually.
You're more sort of seeing like
like just
sort of areas of color rather than lines.
Yeah, so I just draw sort of around the different colors, and then obviously then when I draw it on the fabric, or I draw on like a sort of stabilizer that I use, and I take that off after I've embroidered. And and then it's just easy, just sort of follow that. And obviously you kind of do different, some colors when you have them on the skein or whatever, they don't look the same as when they're next to each other, so things sort of evolve when you're doing it. But this was a real test for me to see if I could do a portrait in 2 days.
Oh wow. That was 2 days worth of work.
That was 2 days, yeah.
Wow.
So that was a little sort of test. But because I always want to try and keep prices low for people, because that's the
Do you know what the portrait reminds me of as well? It's I'm quite obsessed with miniatures. I love portrait miniatures. It's such a weird thing to be obsessed by. But I think that anyone who loves making things with their hands, who's taken the time to look at portrait miniatures and just sort of the level of juicy craft in them, it's just so like yummy.
I always want to make like an embroidered like Fabergé egg with like portraits and things.
That would be the dream.
Yeah.
You could open it up and it's like 3D, and then it has like your portrait inside.
Yeah, that's my 10-year project.
Yeah. That's one of the crazy year-long projects that someone only those cash-rich people should approach you with.
Well, that's the thing. You've got to make a living somehow, and you know. Yeah. I do have projects. I do have things that I was making lots of. I'm obsessed with Victorian sort of botany paintings, like watercolors, really beautiful studies, and Audubon especially, and the birds. So I was making these mutations. The idea, okay, bear with me 1 second.
No, go for it. This is great.
I was obsessed with Chernobyl way before everyone else was obsessed with Chernobyl.
Before the TV series and everything. Yeah.
And I started speaking to these guys that like kind of they're called stalkers, and they go into places in Chernobyl, and they're amazing. There's a whole thing on Instagram if you look up Chernobyl stalkers, and they'll take you in the places, and they won't take you in the places. And the first mutations were with birds, but they didn't last very long, because it was with some kind of starling, and they had the males had like a white front to them, and after the accident they stopped having this white front, but then like they weren't attractive, so they just died out really quickly.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so it was really interesting looking at all these. And there were these beautiful daisies that looked like they'd been photoshopped, just elongated and beautiful, or just like 2 petals on one side, just really, really gorgeous. So I started drawing and manipulating these old Victorian.
That's so goth.
Like, and
beautiful radioactive mutated daisies. They were
so beautiful, and I wanted in my head, the idea was that I was like an Audubon or an explorer finding this sort of mutation, very much like that film Annihilation. When that came out, I was like, this is what's been going on in my head, these mutated animals that become this new beautiful, but like a glitch, like almost like a computer glitch or something. So that is always in the background, that whenever I do get time to do my own like work without, you know, worrying about paying the rent or whatever, then that's what I'm working on. And one day I will have a proper exhibition, and I won't be terrified to show people and do all of that.
Yeah, we would love you to have a proper exhibition. That would be wonderful. Like, that definitely needs to happen once we're allowed to go outside, or maybe even before. You can start making, well, obviously there's your website. I'm not sure I quite understand the difference between a website and an online exhibition. I kind of feel like we need to keep working on that as a creative community. But
I don't know the difference between that either.
So Lucy, what else would you like to tell everyone about? Is there any, I've got to the point where I'm like, is there any news, events, like next things you're working? Is there anything happening? Nothing's happening in my life. Is there anything happening in yours? It's that question.
No, nothing's happening. What am I doing? Well, I don't know. The bras, like, that's definitely something that I'm gonna be making bras, and I've got some panties maybe, and some other things.
Oh, bras and panties would be lovely.
And panties.
Have you got any of the bras to hand to show?
I do. There's oops, and I do make these with underwiring as well, if you want that little extra support.
Excellent.
And
gorgeous.
Everything that I do, the idea is that it can be anything, you know. It doesn't, if you want this with something or I'm like very,
and then I've also seen
more medieval bunnies,
bunnies
and snail man, he looks a bit upset, but they're fighting each other. There's a dog getting a piggyback from a bunny, and he's jousting. So he's got a joust, and he's gonna knock him off his snail.
This is great.
Yeah, I like the idea of maybe doing a bit more customization of existing clothing. You know, the renew and recycle and sustainability is something that I really believe in, and that's definitely more of what I would like to be involved in.
It's definitely a great way to take garments that we all own, that are something that we've loved, we've worn, but now they have a hole in them, for example.
Yeah. Or like a stain or something on your favorite t-shirt. It's like, just whack something on it.
Put a medieval inspired snail man riding across your dress on it.
Penis basket, yeah.
Penis trees. Yes, penis trees for everyone. So if you have holes in your clothing, don't worry, we can put a vulva on that for you. That's what we can do to fix it.
Don't worry, we'll just stick a nipple on it, everything will be fine.
Stick a nipple on it, put a vulva on it, add a penis tree, life can, we can bring these things back to life and back to being beautiful again.
Yeah. I mean, I this is the only thing that I put an embroidery on that I own. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And this was actually
with the eye inside.
Yeah, this was actually a shirt that had a piece of my ex-boyfriend's poetry on here, and I really liked the shirt, but I was like, about the ex-boyfriend
bit
poetry
done with the
thing.
Ex-boyfriend's poetry.
Yeah,
right.
So
totally
I thought, I know what I'll do, and then so I can wear it. But yeah, you can still see it from the other side, but it's
love that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of great, because then, you can look inside that stained t-shirt or whatever it is and go, there's what it used to be, and now look at the front of it and this is what it's become. And that's really beautiful, I think.
Yeah, and make it special and something no one else will ever have the same. Even if I embroider a couple of the same things, because they're made by hand, they'll never be the same. And everything is constantly evolving. I'm always evolving as an artist. I've always got a million ideas going on in my head, so nothing ever is the same. So I love the idea that people have something that's just theirs, just for them, and it's special.
I love that too. I think that's a beautiful place to leave this week's chat. I've loved this. Thank you so much, Lucy. And everyone, please go and look at Lucy's work. And also I will be posting this to IGTV, and I will also be posting it on YouTube. And the YouTube link is in the bio of the @FashionUnfucked Instagram account. And yes, I think that's everything that I needed to say. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for all the love and the hearts. Thanks everyone. And
what's happening next week?
Any of this, until next week, love, that's what we've got to give out here, is lots of love. Until next week. Mwah. Bye.